university with a lot of musicians. Every time I touched a microphone, they were like, so I get scared every time, but it's okay. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. I'm Bailey Schomburg. This is This is Lizzie. Quick housekeeping before anything, before we get into it. See him. Okay. Awesome. Thank you for iPadding really hard. Okay, so everybody knows restrooms in the back, right over here. It is a cash bar. Tip your bartender, please. Always and forever. There's a photographer here tonight. If you don't want your photos taken, please see Erin. Erin is over there waving her amazing, beautiful hands, and she can give you a media opt-out form. So if you don't want to be mediated.
Also, welcome to Observable Reading Series. I don't know if you can tell, we are newbies here. Even though we have both run other literary events, for whatever reason, we're walking into big shoes. Big, beautiful shoes from Dean 11, who was killing it so much right before this. So we want to, of course, do a shout out to her and everyone at Poetry Center believing in us that we could do this with the state that our post-pandemic brains are different now. This is, we're ending now. This is the last reading of the 20th season of Observable, which is sort of wild. Yes. Hello to everyone on the internet and Facebook and everything. We will be then picking up this season, the next season up in September. So we'll have a little beautiful hiatus. So there's a lot of hurrahs for this. We did it. Bailey, we did it. So we'll introduce ourselves a little bit, but then we of course want to get to the poets. That's the reason we're all here. So my name's Lizzie Peterson. I've been a fan of the Poetry Center for like 4, 5, 7, 8 years. From afar, I remember getting lunch with Erin a long time ago when we were like, what if River Styx and the Poetry Center had a merger? We talked about that once over burritos or something. That didn't happen. But I've always loved collaborating with Erin, and I'm very excited now to be in this new chapter over here with the reading series. Do you want to introduce yourself with the hair?
Yeah.
How about it?
Yeah. Hello. Stuck with the mic. As I said, Bailey Schomburg. I'm super grateful to be here. I'm so grateful that St. Louis Poetry Center exists and exists in the way that it does. It is beautiful and necessary for our community. And if there's anything that I'm almost more passionate about than poetry, it's poetry community and making sure that we have a place to go and a place to hear beautiful language. So I'll go ahead and okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't get to all my talking points. Let's see. Another piece that kind of segues into, and I'm also a grant writer by day, so I will thank the funders, Missouri Arts Council, Regional Arts Council, and all the beautiful St. Louis Poetry Center members. You can become a member. It's so easy. When I was pretty broke, I was doing it $5 a month via a PayPal automatic thing that I made Erin set up for me, so it can be done. Also, thank you to our partners, the Hilo, this beautiful literary arts building, Greensburg Arts Foundation, who makes all this stuff possible, and Left Bank Books, which is where the books are from, and Erin, our beautiful executive director over there, selling books, because she's also very good at that. And there is a generative writing workshop tomorrow, which is a Sunday, at 11, also here. I feel like y'all are booked, but some of the people in this room might actually be those people who are signed up for that, so it should be fun. All right, I'm gonna hand it off to you.
Awesome.
I'm gonna stand off the stage.
Okay, this is good. We'll get better at this, I promise. Is my voice just really weird? Like, okay, I'm going to I'm gonna give an intro for Edgar, and I'm excited about that. So, I'm gonna do the amazing but kind of boring stuff first and say that Edgar Kunz, yes, is the author of 2 poetry collections, Fixer, published by Echo in 2023, and named a New York Times Editor's Choice book, and Tap Out, published by Echo in 2019. He has been a National Endowment for the Arts Fellow, a McDowell Fellow, and a Wallace Stegner Fellow at Stanford University. Recent poems appeared in The New Yorker, The Atlantic, Poetry, American Poetry Review, and Oxford American. He lives in Baltimore and teaches at, how do you say it? Goucher. That's what I thought, but I was like, poet brain, yeah, I almost said Boucher, and I'm really glad that, okay. So now I'm gonna do the sappy part. So I had the privilege of meeting Edgar 6 years ago. We just realized when he came to St. Louis and took part in an event that I was kind of spearheading. I had no idea what I was doing. I was completely panicked, and I just thought, oh, it's gonna fail. And then the night before the event, the poets and writers had gotten into town, and I was so overwhelmed, but I was super excited, and was walking down the street, totally exhausted, totally worried, and then Edgar and Katie, his awesome, great, wonderful, really stylish boo, saw me. They were in a restaurant with some other writers, and they saw me, and they knocked on the window, and they invited me to come in, and the fear I was feeling melted away. It really did. I was with my people. I was reminded that I was living, breathing, everything was gonna be okay. And I love Tap Out, but I want to talk about Fixer a little bit because it's really an incredible book. The poems in Fixer remind us that we are living. They channel poetic balance at its best. They're deeply skillful in technique without losing an ounce of heart. The narrative is brought to the surface by way of gentle yet hard-earned lyricism, and the voice is a voice that knows. In order to write poetry, one must live. So, here's Edgar.
Hi. How are you? Good. Cool. You're here on a Saturday night? That's pretty cool. It's Saturday, isn't it? Yeah. I remember giving a reading once, and it was the same night as the finale to Game of Thrones. And I was like, you guys are here, and you could be watching Game of Thrones. Then it turned out that sucked anyway, right? So maybe it was cool that they were in poetry instead. It's really cool to be here. Thank you so much, really. That was really beautiful introduction. I'm so glad to be reconnecting, 6 years or 100 years later. The last 6 years have felt, I don't know what time is it. Yeah, and thank you, Erin, and thank you, Lizzie, and thank you to the St. Louis Poetry Center for having me. I'm going to read some poems. This book I published in August of this year, and I've been traveling basically ever since. The college I teach at gave me a semester off to travel to support the book. And this is I've done 40-something readings all over the country and in Europe and stuff. And so this is my last in-person reading of the tour. And it's at St. Louis. Yeah, that feels good. I don't know. And my sweetheart's from here. She's from St. Louis. I rep St. Louis real hard. So it feels good. So anyway, it's cool that you're here. Have you all been through a breakup? Yeah. Have you been through a breakup where you felt like you deserved to be struck by lightning? smaller population people. Have you been through it, right, where you felt like you deserve to be struck by lightning? And do you really like Stevie Nicks?
Yes. Yes.
Whatever that Venn diagram of people is, this is your poem. It's called Day Moon. After I left, I waited for someone, a friend or her herself, to walk quickly up to me on the bus or in the bustling coffee shop and slap my face, spit on my hands, call me a bastard, a real motherfucker. By waited, I mean I wanted to be revealed by some visible sign. A welt to ride the ledge of my cheek through the glass-littered streets. It didn't come, and I grew desperate. I stared too long at strangers at Safeway. I bought boxes of clementines and ate them like a possum on the train, cramming the rinds in the gap between the seat and the wall. I drank warm beer. I made no calls. I sat on a hot metal bench by a briny lake and tried to imagine the lives of the joggers passing in front of me, their joys, their sicknesses and regrets. I was useless. I thought of my friend who wrote a novel over a long winter in Nova Scotia, read it once and buried it in the copse of birches behind the house. He chose the spot, he said, for its plainness, so he couldn't remember later and dig it up. And in this way, one medicated season slid into the next without incident. Gardenia bloom, persistent sun. I fell in love with the perfect voice of a Midwest radio DJ from a station I streamed on my phone, called in one request after another. I fell in love with a video of Stevie Nicks singing backstage to her makeup artist. Sheer cotton dress, their harmonies breezy and immaculate. I woke around noon to the thump-thump of helicopters and another unsober voicemail from my dad angling for a loan. Went out in my underwear and found a fine black powder settling on the windowsills, dusting the parked cars, a day moon suspended in orange haze. It turned out a man who would go months without getting caught was methodically setting fire to the half-built condo complexes one by one. 1 in 10,000 residents is a billionaire, the same article told me. Though I can be forgiven for thinking the headlands were burning again. The intervals between disasters collapsing, I caught my neighbor's eye. She was stretching on her stoop in a fantastic powder blue tracksuit. What a world, I said, and she did not seem to hear, and jogged across the narrow street, the moon behind her rising, or sinking, or neither. It was hard to know. If you take one thing from this reading, it's that you should go watch that YouTube video. It's Stevie Nicks. If you look up Stevie Nicks Wild Heart backstage, it'll come up. I've watched it hundreds of times at this point, and it's young Stevie on tour with Fleetwood Mac, and she's got just the seed of a song. You know, she's got like 2 or 3 lines, and she sings them over and over again. And the band comes in behind her, and she's singing directly to her makeup artist, kind of locking eyes. And then she made it into an actual song later, and it's not very good. I don't know. It just goes to show that you can work the magic out of something. You know what I mean? She wrote all these verses. She made it into sort of a conventional song, and it was better as like the pure spirit that it was at the beginning. Sorry, Stevie. Do you know McCormick's Spice Company?
Yeah.
I used to work for them. I used to taste test dips for them. They're that's a real job. Their offices are in Hunt Valley, Maryland, which is just outside of Baltimore. And I'm proud of this poem because basically all I do is I describe my job. That's it. I remember showing it to my editor and she was like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "I'm sure." There's no quality control on these books. You can sneak anything in. It's called Tester. I catch a bus out to the county and check in at a beige terminal, and they ask me about the smells and textures of various dips, and I click appealing or not appealing, then elaborate in the text box below. Artichoke and French onion, spicy 3 being queso. I got in on referral. I live with 7 other people. I measure rent and how many sessions I have to do with the dips. I start testing what I can get away with. Notes of bright espresso, mouthfeel of a sun-ripe plum. I write longer and longer. I don't think they read a word. It's weeks before you're entered into the system, more weeks to get your tiny check. Aline says, if you think it's a scam, why do you keep saying yes? In the fluorescent room, I receive one dip after another from blue-gloved hands, always the same plain tortilla chips to dip with, the same hands clearing away the tiny plastic cups. I take her with my descriptions. If I need water, they bring me water in slightly larger cups. That's it. Best job ever. They fed me and I worked on my little poems. Yeah. Something hard happened between my first and second book. My dad died. He was 52. Pretty young guy, you know. He was an addict, been an addict for a long time. And he finally passed, and it wasn't surprising, but what did surprise me is how painful it was, regardless, you know. You see something coming for a long time and you kind of try to grieve it ahead of time, and then the shock of it still hits you, you know. So he died right before my first book came out in 2019, and so I'm traveling around reading from that book, and there are a lot of poems about him in there, and that was really hard. And then I just didn't write. I didn't write for years. I mean, it was at least 2 years that I didn't write anything worthwhile at all. You know, I was having a hard time approaching the blank page, which is daunting in the best of times, you know, to face it and be like, okay, I'm gonna fucking make something. And I had this crisis about being a writer too. And I was like, I've inherited some weird ideas, I think some capitalist ideas about what an artist is and does. And, you know, am I a poet if I'm not making poems and so on? I'm sure the writers in the audience can relate to that. So anyway, out of that crisis emerged all of these middle poems in this book. The middle poem, well, it's technically one poem, it's called Fixer. And each poem looks like this. It's 18 lines long. It's like a long sonnet, kind of. And this had never happened to me before, but I fell in love with the shape, you know? I became, maybe love isn't right, but I became obsessed with the shape. I felt like this is exactly the right kind of container to pour material into, dump it out, fill it up again, dump it out, fill it up again. And so I wrote all these poems about going home and linking up with my brothers and clearing out my dad's apartment and trying to figure out what he's going to mean to us now and what we're going to mean to each other. So I'm going to read a handful of these and then I'll probably read just one last one. Yeah. We're breaking into your apartment through your bedroom window. The maintenance guy's ladder is propped against the sill. I climb the ladder rung by rung. It shivers. I try not to look down. A face appears in the glass. What are you doing? The face says. I'm looking for my dad's, I say. I thought this was his window. Aren't you Ken's boy? He says. No, I say. Chris's. Oh, Chris, he says. He's dead. I know, I say. I thought you could be Ken's, he says. Sorry, I say. Believe me, the face says. Not my first rodeo. I climb down. We haul the ladder to the next window and try again. Better than the minivan you slept a winter in. American Legion parking lot, siphoning gas for heat, but not much better. Cinder block apartment building on Homestead, a couple miles from Mom's. Got in through the window, waded through the cans and bedding, left it open for the smell. Tried not to look at the stain. Tried to be respectful, like in a museum. Stood for so long in front of your dresser, my brother touched my elbow. Everything we touch, you touch. Your socks, your coat, the cash in your pockets, the cellophane from a fresh pack, Zippo with a carving of a whale, proud ship in the distance. I'll pause here and say that this is my dad's lighter on the cover of the book. Yeah, I had my friend take a photo of it after, no offense, Echo sent me some of the worst covers that anyone has ever seen. They were bad. I'll just tell you, you know what a gospel?
Yeah.
They sent me some covers that were all they were all like scenes out of a Restoration Hardware catalog or something. Or like, what's that other one? Anthropology. You know, they were obsessed with ladders. They were like, ladders are all over the book. Let's do a ladder cover. And they would have like a taupe wall of like a beautifully disheveled mansion, and then they'd have like a towel ladder leading against. You know, like no one's ever used this ladder. This is a decorative ladder. And they were so obsessed with this, and I finally was like, hey, listen, I'm just gonna have my friend take some photos of the lighter, and then this one, I think it, you know, ended up being a cool cover. So I kind of bullied them into it. Anyway, this press is sick of me. My brother said this one to me over the phone. I was kind of fact checking, because we lived through this together, you know, and I was kind of fact checking some poems with them, which I don't recommend. Because he did recommend some changes, and I was pissed. but I asked him when the last time he saw our dad was, and this is what he said to me, almost word for word. Renee and I were doing some limb work, Noah says, on the tree out front, that twisty pine at the corner of the house, taking a couple widows off it. And Dad drives up drunker than I've ever seen him. We're close, in a red Ford Focus. Gives me the biggest hug he can, considering he dropped 20 pounds since I last saw him, and I'm the ground guy, holding the rope. Puts his arm around my shoulder and just kind of stands there. Neither of us saying a word, not knowing after 2-3 minutes he'll get back in the car and drive off. Last time I'll ever see him. Because when you're the ground guy, you gotta focus on the guy in the tree. You mess up and that limb swings out and hits the line. Bang, the whole block goes dark. Can you imagine that? You just said it to me. I'll read 2 more little ones and then the last one. This one I've just started to feel brave enough to read. It's a found poem. I think you'll see, you know, it'll become clear where the material is from. The heart weighs 360 grams. Stenosis in the coronary, 80% occlusion. The valves are unremarkable. The ventricles are unremarkable. The brain weighs 1,310 grams and is normal size and shape. The brain stem has the usual patterns on the cut surface. Positive for duloxetine antidepressant in the blood. Positive for nicotine, for ethanol. The genitals are those of a normal man. The scalp has no contusion. The skull has no fracture. The mustache is a 1/4 inch. The beard is a half. The nose and facial bones are intact. The tongue is unremarkable. The airway is clear. And my mom gets the last word in this section, as she does in her real life. This is what she has to say. I held him together as long as I could, she says. He stopped working, stopped coming upstairs. He was like tissue paper coming apart in water, like smoke in my hands. It had nothing to do with you, baby. You left when you had to. I met a woman once who worked on pianos, said it was a hard job, the tools, the leverage, the required ear. I love it, she said, but it's brutal. The second I step away, it's already fallen out of tune. And I'll end with this one. Reyes, I'm so excited to hear you read, man. I'm so glad to have met you now and to know you. Anyway, it's an honor to be reading with you. This is a love poem. I'm in love. I got engaged this summer. Yeah, we've been together for like 10 years, so I don't know why. I was so nervous to ask anyway. I was like, oh, God, sweating, pacing around. She said, yeah, of course, but it didn't stop me from, I was sweating. We're in Paris too, which I don't care about. you know? I don't care that it's cliche. It was cool as hell. Does anyone know what a night heron is? A night heron, it's a heron, technically. It's a little sinister bird. We lived in Oakland for a while on Lake Merritt, which is this lake off of downtown. And there are all these, it's kind of a bird sanctuary, all these amazing birds, pelicans, which I've never seen before, cormorants, who don't have oil glands in their wings, so they have to shake their wings out. You'll see them kind of drying their wings. Anyway, the bird that we loved was this ugly little fucker called a night heron. And he's like a cartoon villain of a bird, you know? That's all I'll say about that. It's got no punctuation, so I'm going to read it accordingly. Yeah, shout out to Katie. Night heron, what now? You've flown in from a Midwest city named for its rowdy summertime abundance, lying, saying you were coming to visit friends in San Francisco, and I had taken the train from chilly Oakland to meet you, and we rode north, carefully not touching. I took you to the tiny one-room apartment I had escaped to after the divorce and fried us nervously some potatoes in a cast-iron pan, a little rosemary, which we did not eat because you kissed me hard, and we went in a rush to the mattress I bought off a guy in a semi-famous band, and only the day before gotten off the floor and onto the pinewood bed frame I'd found and hoisted on my back and carried down out of North Berkeley, arms wide, weaving through the side streets, towing the center line to avoid snagging the Buckeyes leading out. It was about suffering in public. It was dramatic, sure, but the dramas of my life those days were pitched as high as I could stand, higher sometimes. I said, breathless, I want to taste you, and you said, please, yes. And later out at the edge of the lake, huddled against the damp wind, hot grease soaking through a paper bag, licking salt from each other's fingers obscenely, a night heron peered up at us from the reeds, small, hunched, dipping its shining beak in the shallows, not particularly beautiful, but a heron nevertheless, the same one we were sure we saw perched on the awning outside the theater, whose marquee shouted slogans like, "We live in a fake democracy and prevent unwanted presidencies with hand-counted paper ballots." And later, the cabin we rented with friends in Calaveras, snowmelt vaulting the redwoods to magnificent heights, drinking rye, and each of us practicing our best wolf howl at the waning moon, which was ridiculous, yes. But once we started, it became impossible to stop. Waking up next morning hoarse and happy, and you moved west, and we lived together in a studio overlooking the cafe dumpster, and then back east on a dream of a house and a garden, and then my father died. And at almost the same age yours did, both from drink and an unnameable sadness, I went back to Connecticut alone. 3.5 days, my mother said, before anyone had found him, in his apartment on the far side of town, going with my brother, which we should not have done, and dragging the mattress out, and clearing the maggots off the ceiling, the shop vac, and so on. And later you came, and we walked through the basement of my mother's house. I wanted to show you where for a while he lived, and how. And you swung your arm around my waist, and we moved slowly together, bare fluorescent bulb shining on the Budweiser ashtray, the carpentry tools I would inherit, the ratty couch he crashed on for years. You held up an old Calypso record he loved and sang out softly, "Jump in the line, rock your body in time," and I sang back softly, "Okay, I believe you." And after a while, Mom at the top of the stairs shouting, "What are you kids doing down here?" And climbing the steps, you pinch my elbow and ask if I'm okay. I hear myself say yes, which is not a lie, though I'm not listening. I'm letting myself feel how astonishing what our love can make of a place like that. That's it for me.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Edgar. That was so good. The weird thing again about running a series is you're like, oh, it's me. I gotta go up there and talk, because you're just sitting there like, damn, that was a good line. You know, like, oh, that's how that ended, or whatever. And the simmering is still happening, but I'm still trying to talk about stuff. Okay, keeping it popping, keeping it moving. So I'm here to introduce Reyes Ramirez, who's here from, what is it, Houston by way of Indianapolis? Is that correct? Okay, so he's just all over the place doing a million fellowships all the time, which is what we talked about at dinner, which was great. And I met him at one such fellowship, the Mid-America Arts Alliance, due date April 15th. If you're interested, the interchange grant, I highly recommend it if you have questions. Anyway, it led me to actually Miss Martin over here and getting to be in her high school class all day for like multiple days and seeing like every single sophomore at Gateway High School or whatever it was. It was so much fun. So that's the full circle of all of this. But anyway, and when I met him, he was describing to me on Zoom what his project was about, and I had to look it up again because I did not remember it all. And I was like, oh my god, it's about Houston, it's about grids, it's about all of these different kinds of like intersectional experiences and things like that in Houston. And I'm like, I immediately wanted to talk to him about streets in St. Louis and how many I've gotten in car accidents on. But there's like specific corners, which I did. I'm telling you 100%, I did make him listen to that. But I was amazed. I was like, oh, with like a real life like art critic, like because he was doing at this time, he was like bringing together these different artists in a virtual kind of exhibit. And then I'm like looking, and I'm like, oh, and then he's got a book of short stories coming out. Of course. It's the Book of Wanderers. I have it sitting over there. You definitely have to check it out. I can't do it justice trying to explain to you quite how it works, but it's a little past, present, future that quickly becomes like sci-fi and takes place in Houston. Is that good enough? It's probably good enough. Okay, you can also just read it. But I was like, oh, okay, so he's a fiction writer. Okay, that's cool. Art criticism, fiction. And then this mofo comes out here with a book of poems. And I was like, I can't not. It's so impressive that beautiful brain over there can do all three. So impressive. I told him I couldn't finish my one essay. So, you know, that prose is hard. That prose is so hard. I stopped at 8 pages. I had to like text my one friend. I was like, so like, how do you know if it's like a micro essay or if it's like 20 pages? She's like, such is life, baby. So I don't know. Anyway, so I want to hype him up as much as I can. So I'll just start listing, you know, credentials, I guess. So he has been honored as a 2020 Cantamundo Fellow, Interchange Artist Grant Fellow, that's what we did, 2022 Crosstown Arts Writer in Residence, and just there's a million things, a million books, another on the way. So I'll get off stage so that he can just show you how brilliant it is. All right.
What up, everybody? My name is Reyes Ramirez, coming to you from Houston, H-Town, Space City, Bayou City. We just got a lot of names. But it's an honor to be here in St. Louis, San Luis, if you want to get a little Spanish. It's a great city. I want to read you some poems about Houston, but I also just want to thank Edgar for that poetry. It was amazing. I'm honored to follow up with that. I'm going to try to match that energy and that greatness. I want to thank Lizzie. I want to thank Bailey. I want to thank Aaron. I want to thank the St. Louis Poetry Center. It's really just an honor to be here in front of you all. So thank you for being here. I would not rather be anywhere else in the world. So there's a lot of series poems in El Ray of Gold Teeth right here. And one series is about just living life in Houston. So you might find some commonalities, you might find some things that you have never heard of before, and I think that's great. Y'all got traffic here, right? Like, yeah, all right. Well, so you'll probably find some kinship with this one. Being stuck in traffic with my big sister on I-45 South at 6 p.m. is my America. Can the radio play hip hop, then cumbia, classic rock, then pop, oblea sweet? There's conversations about a war, then prayer, swearing, someone asking why love can hurt so much. Is it because the distance between wanting someone and them wanting you back is so vast, so great? I think it's this gulf of yearning, this tectonic plate of want, reminding us not everything in short lives can be fulfilled, yeah. And starting anew takes more life? Oh, for sure. It's static, interrupted by someone speaking in another language, then silence. Look outside the car window. The freeway wall forms a frame bottom to an infinite painting. The sky is a bed of lavender rusted by dying sunshine. Aren't those clouds up there actually loose feathers to a big bird who takes people away with too many questions? Just a graveyard of creamsicles. You're supposed to hold your breath. I'm looking equally at the other drivers. We all face forward. Is every windshield a pair of glasses into a soul's polyester interior littered with receipts and cups? Every driver is a city without ordinances for what is needed. Every car is its own riddle, like this gray sedan. Look, the bumper has stickers of a team's flag, a radio station that doesn't exist, or maybe Bible verse, and one that says, if you can read this, suck my, yes, the bumper is truly the windowsill to the soul. The trunk is the soul itself. Now look, in the rear windshield, a kid plays with die-cast toy cars on the back rest. What a film he composes. One sleek car races another, a fire truck crashes into a spaceship. There's even a convertible zigzagging between the headrest and seatbelt straps. His mouth performs explosions. Will I ever be so lucky? I don't know. Maybe the radio sings through old men. Maybe the radio speaks in Spanish about moratoriums. Maybe the radio is broken. Still, he's created this universe of joy within a city of waiting, within a state of waiting, within a nation of violence, within a continent of theft, within this last world. How can we not be so lucky? Tell me, what's right out that window? An atmosphere blotted like fingerprints on a cake. Some painting continues. To birds were rows of smelly hands and broken glass. That's good. Here's the exit. This stream of consciousness tributaries. We're breaking away from this one mind. Were we floating in a river of concrete, growling engines and blood? First it's hot, then it's too cold. My booty and back are so stiff, I want to be elsewhere. Well, the world persists despite our desires. We're all sitting and trying to escape our deadlined bodies. How do we achieve what's next in our destinies? We enter another sleep. We won't remember this dream when we awake. All right, here's another one for you. This one is, let's see, y'all got tropical storms here? Well, we got a lot. So this one's a sad poem, but then we'll get to a funny poem. All right. Finding kittens after a tropical storm is my America. Clouds weep so much, a city can't drink anymore. Streets turn into rivers, buildings are a shelter or not. I survey around my home, every surface glowed with wet. Choirs of drips dive from branches. They barely mask the muse, pitiful as pennies dancing in a palm. I locate them by pausing breath, listening beyond speaking water, and find hardly more than fetus, edgeless mouth, struggling to squeak. Raw pink paws thrash again for nipples on a rusted air conditioner, making sense of our paradigm too. Body so light, not even a shadow, no depression in the damp dirt underneath the plump belly. When I lift its body in my hands, I cup flesh to kindle heat. For the others, I repeat my process. Hold breath, stay still, attune, a mew, step into its ghost, again. They've scattered themselves into points on a map of disorder. Clouds murmur as I collect them. Not too far, a kitten is stuck between a tree trunk and a house. One has its noodly leg caught in the web of a veiny root. The furthest screams at sweating grass. The last I find too late. Surviving is a matter of circumstance. Home sip rain or inundate. A man drenches in a 2-ton truck. A kitten remains dry by a tree. Their limbs torsion like tired salmon. I clump their bodies. One sucks the foot of another. Furry kidneys gasp as one lung. I leave them alone for now. Their mother may be hunting to return and feed them bellyfuls. My presence is a counterspell. Yes, a mother may return or be dead. It's counting intricacies of tragedy that inspires profound thirst. The logic of abandonment happens. Think full storm drain and engulf. To see lines of silver and consider who are in cages. A tree has toppled, made into a boat by currents. Kittens smush into each other, groaning like a house straining against the anger of gusts. Their eyes will not open for another week. Their ears will remain folded for a few days more. The only sound is water falling into water. The only sight is every surface bound with water. Every smell infected by the specter of water. I dream of awakening on a brown raft floating about an alabaster nebula. When I check them the next day, I dig a wet hole behind my wet house with my wet hands and bury them together. I'll hear mews and door openings instinctually and hissings of faucets. I lay on my back and become their evidence. A 4th grade dance party in the cafeteria at 1 p.m. is my America. Children file in with fluorescent sneakers, chirping across a blue-gray chessboard. Adults are all at work. I chaperone. Lunch ladies load tired pennies into cylinders. A man mops a corner. Gym teacher cues a clean playlist. No child must do anything except what music inspires. Mira. This barely lit dance is a nation of motion. I lean against a wall and be its facilitator. A scheduled bell rings. The children recognize one song, then another. Those who know how form a mass and sway to the beat of a 90s hit. More children join in this stewing of joints and sound, knowing their dances like the Millie Rock, the Juju, Running Man, even ones before their birth, like the Macarena, Wobble, Cha-Cha Slide. Each child becomes another. These must be inherited languages, since movement has been our truth. I witness the song's lyrics progress until words everyone has memorized plays. Children sing in one mind from many voices. I need not be a member of this congregation to be saved by it. The next bell rings. The children have grown with ache and understand things end prematurely. A song, a dance, this nation. The adults continue their labors. I file children back into a line. Lunch ladies remove their hairnets. That man mops that corner. The gym teacher is just a gym teacher. We go back to class and learn math or science or a history. In the face of what needs change in this country, I'm still a child. All right, the last one that I'll read for this series is Being High in the Movie Theater on Westheimer is My America. Y'all get the vibes. All right. Tracking shots of broken teeth kaleidoscope my phantom skin. When I remember to look up, they're talking about a bomb in someone's country to be dealt with as a metaphor for how perfect an empire's engine percolates. Wait, all the characters are played by one white actor, switching wigs and inflating lips mid-scene using CGI. The sidekick is someone's Theo in a canary body crooning, "You're right, compadre." Hold up, that's different. That's an insurance commercial from 2002. This guy's different, doing the same voice, playing a villain who wants revenge. His origin story is, quote, "America took everything from me." Cut to the right bomb resting in the womb of a red school. Quote, "He's taken this too far," the white actor responds, while staring at my empty hands. This is too obvious. I mean, there's even a scene where the white actor says they don't see brown, black, white, blue, purple, blurple. I already can't remember how the movie ends. It's okay, I'll daydream it later, because right now I have to not fall down some stairs. I leave my seat. Pebbles of stars blink me to an exit like I'm leaving an orientation to enter an afterlife. Now to pick the correct door. By the time the lobby lens flares me, I realize the movie hadn't ended. Oh fuck, I'm too embarrassed to complete what I paid for. My eyes panoramic and focus on the family not mine, but very much mine in a sitcom about me. The child pulls their mother to a poster for a movie about a laughing dog played by that white actor. The mom reminds him, quote, "Y si Dios quiere," which translates to, quote, "I will give it everything I have, but there's a plan we aren't a part of yet." The child then leads her to a coal-eyed robot convulsing with edible doubloons. Please let my psychopomp be so generous as to guide me to my eternity by the hand in a humming stroll, like this child navigating the legal sugars of a concession stand, and not along a path of throat-singing rocks lit by electric veins, echoing from a screaming vortex I'm about to be tossed into, for savoring sins I was notified of, well in advance, in writing. I ask someone for water who informs me of an apparatus over there that miracles it by pushing a lever with a paper cup. I hate being this vulnerable in public, that someone will see me for myself and ask, "Are you okay?" The accurate answer is, it's complicated. Since there comes a time in a man's life when he reaches 30, thinking anything possible at 20, over drinking beer as bitter as gunpowder he was supposed to be buried in. Duh, I'm that man. The real question is, if this is a nation of tradition, how are you not its catchphrase? To which I'll slur, I drink and love and surrender at my own expense, which is about half true. When I finally finish the movie, it will have won several awards. Yeah, y'all get it. All right. So I'm part of another series of poems in this collection. I have some food poems. I'll read one from that series. Let's see, do y'all, has pozole hit here yet?
Pozoles.
Yeah. All right. Pozole. Examine handsome pork and note the vulnerabilities. The ears blush, the feet's foggy tendons, the ruby pierna's coat of grasa, a lightning of white cartilage. Strip the gummy fat and know what must be made bare. Place them all in la olla with streaks of cold tears, full of agua hirviendo. What is any sabor but a flesh boiled until clouds of loam float to the water's screaming surface like souls to rapture? Skim the sputtering espuma. Add ajos, onion, salt, bouillon. Whatever may grace throat and stomach with wax-thick broth. A recipe is a litany of what has nourished the history of your becoming. Stir so nothing sinks and sticks. Open latas of white hominy. Hand wash them like spilled teeth, like nascent pearls, like orbs of wisdom from the dead. Continue boiling, continue waiting, continue living. Remove what can no longer give. Cebolla, garlic, doubt. Add bay leaf, add oregano, add what cannot be said. Taste this labor. Taste what's been tasted before you, what has provided clarity beyond hunger, what has been prepared to the singing of those who cannot hear your music, by those now in unwakeable sleep, through your mother's hope, through the instinct to reach across in time and say, you are here. Is it possible to ever be alone? All right. Let's see. So there's another series of poems that focus on historical figures, particularly Latinx figures. And there's me being of Mexican and Salvadoran descent. They tend to be either Mexican American or Salvadoran American, where I focus on figures that maybe you haven't heard of. For example, how many of you have heard of Rosemary Casadas? Yeah, so she was a Salvadoran American tennis player who was actually there with Billie Jean King, who I'm sure you've heard of. But she actually protested for higher women athletes' pay, but you often don't really hear about her side of it all. And she actually at one point became the highest paid tennis player when she won, I think, like the Marlboro tennis tournament. And so this poem is for her. It is called Answers Without Questions. I had no idols. Think. At a dinner table, a blue bowl reflects your face as a drowning angel. Stomach screams speaking, do you think about rosemary licked crust of roasted chicken crackling between your teeth and wait for someone to deliver this fantasy? No, you leave and prepare a feast from your ambitions. There's no such thing as strength, just what survives restraint. Why don't you ask a caged motmot about the possibilities of its turquoise wings, the impossibilities of the pendulous black rackets at tail's end? To answer your question, it's my movement and overhead, how I'm seen yet unconceivable, how I smack a ball into its fate, respectively. I can prevaricate with words like dedication, heart, and discipline, but truly, it takes everything. A willingness to be inspected like a crime scene, able to answer someone calmly when they ask if you belong here, the desire to transform the tennis ball into a whirling sun, and being ready for all of it to never be enough. No one memory ever defines a life. That's like seeing one frame to experience a film. When you think about it, death is when an object or moment or person is removed of its story. Sans history and future, a thing is just a thing, an heirloom with no heir. Let me put it this way. I've lost everything, but won everything as well. Really, I'm everything and its loss, the loss and everything's returned. If you're about it, you always want to play the best. If I could play against God, then I'd play against God. Not that I'm foolish enough to think I could beat God, but I would just want to know how God would play, how potent the serves would be, how the ball would exist outside the bounds of time and space, how even God will respect that what they give, I will return, and what I give, they will accept. All right, and so the last poem is part of a series of animal poems. So there's animal poems. Yeah, everyone gets a shout out. So y'all got cicadas here? All right, cool. Just showing my regional ignorance. All right, just us Texans. This one's called the Chichana. Trilling from the secret limbs of coronary trees for drink, heat and desire are our mutual oppressors. The waxy hands of Houston's air cup our bodies as though guarding the last ember from the last fire. Oh, how it would feel to strip my skin from the maize yellow meat underneath, spiraling vapor escaping. A lid sliding off the pot's rim, garbling honeycomb tripe, snakeskin and papada with fever sweat. I've often mistaken their mustardy exoskeleton, abandoned like a truck snuffed by weeds along a highway for living things. How could I? I'd leave my ghost behind too if the rest of me climbed a tree to ululate my frothing organs into the sky's tongue. If your song were translated, would I be able to name the colored grains embodied in a heaving field as sunlight died, rebirthed, glowered, and died again? I look up at a branch. My ears echo with the desire to scream and not be seen. Thank you.
Poets, thank you so much. That was amazing. It was really cool to see some of the themes and some of the ways that your work kind of circle each other in cool ways. Do you want to take like 2 seconds, stretch your arms, above your head, whatever, do a little wiggle. Lizzie's gonna come up. The poets are gonna come back up, and she's gonna do a little Q&A, and then we'll wrap it. All right.
Sorry, everyone, music's over. So if you're anything like me, you had probably a million questions come in your head and you're already rushing to get books. Jen, one of our board chair, presidents, whatever you call that, said, I can't believe I tried to tell myself I wasn't gonna buy books today. Yeah. And I was like, how dare you do that to yourself? Like, these are fake things, budgets. Yeah, so dumb.
That's one more book.
Yeah, plenty of company on the shelves. So I'll launch this with a question, but I also want to lend it back out to you all, the crowd, if you have questions for the writers or their work, their process, or whatever. And I already kind of bombarded them with the question at dinner, so it won't feel as whatever, I'm messing with you. But one of the main reasons that Bailey and I started jiving, I guess, vibing so well when we were talking about planning these readings and everything is we were very into putting writers that may not always be in conversation with each other their work side by side and getting to see the similarities. I remember one of my texts to Bailey was I feel like it's something about labor, I don't know. That's all I had. Something, there's a connection, something about that. But it could be so many other things. And so here's what I'm throwing to you guys now is where are your poems? I want to be where were your poems? Where are they now? Where will they go? But now that you have cranked out the book, it's on page, you're on a circuit. what kinds of like links or from this book to your current writing style or whatever, your current projects, but what are you working on now? Like get us amped for book number whatever, 8 for Reyes, but you know, give us a preview of what's to come or what you're thinking of, what's this work kind of launched you into.
Should we do the mic? Do we need the mic or do you need it? Okay. You can feel free to
Internet
take it up, pass it
probably would
around.
like the mic.
Oh, the internet would like the mic. Do you mind? I'll go first. Cool. How's that? Nice. Yeah, right. Where do poems come from? My first book, I was working on it for so long, you know. I was writing it for like 10 years. In a way, I mean, the cliche about first books is true. You're writing it your whole life. And then you put it out and you're like, oh, okay, I guess I have to do it again somehow, you know. And so it felt, because I was working on the book for so long and revising it, it felt after a while like I was working in a small, dark room with a couple different materials. And I was trying to see how many things I could build out of those materials. And I got really old, you know. I got tired of doing that. I think I made some cool things out of those materials, out of that really limited palette. But I got tired of being in that little room. And so I think you can see toward the end of my first book, I've got this poem about Bitcoin, like cryptocurrency. You know, I've cornered the market on cryptocurrency poems with my one poem. But it's rangy and it's weird and it's kind of, I don't know, it's drifty and a little loose in a way that none of the other poems in the book are. They're super, super tight, super honed, you know, super efficient with language. And then it occurred to me when I was partway into the next book, oh my God, that was the first, like that poem could be in this book, you know? It was a late poem from the first book that was sort of showing me what direction I would go in the second book. And I just don't know yet what poem from Fixer might be pointing to the book after that. But I'm not in a rush either, you know? Writing these books is hard. It like takes a lot out of you. I don't know, I'm trying to give myself permission to like rest. And not be in too much of a rush to crank out another one. Nobody wants to hear from me so soon anyway.
Well, then you're count me as the pre-order for the next one. But yeah, so my first book came out 2022. It was a book of short stories. I finished that one a while ago. That took a while to get published. And then my book of poetry came out. So like it took so long for me to submit the book of short stories, for it to get picked up and then to get edited and then to get in the publishing schedule that I'd finished my book of poetry by that point. And so my book of poetry came out in 2023. And so that one just came out. It took me, I don't know how much time to finish them. And so I remember when the book of short stories came out, I reread some. I read both of them so many times that I don't even know what's in them anymore. If that happened to you, where I'm like, if someone were to quote something from either of the books, I'd be like, I guess I wrote that. Yeah, sure. And sometimes I'd be like, for the book of short stories, I cringed more like when I reread some of the stories, and I'd be like, oh my God, like if I did that now, I'd do it totally different. But that's also what I loved about it is like being patient with that process and being like, I don't know, I needed that Reyes to do that work because I wouldn't be here if that Reyes didn't do that work. And so I might cringe at it now, but I needed that to happen. And so the book of short stories and the book of poetry, and then what I've coming up next is the book of essays. And I think for me, I just like playing with different forms and different genres and just to mess up language and, especially ones that are given to me and for me to mess them up and give them back. And so I think for me, the fiction, the short story is more to play with the truth. The poetry is more to play, more to explore the truth, right? And then the essays are more to deconstruct the truth, right? And so they're all just kind of different experiences, and I'm trying to finish up the book of essays, and so I don't know when that'll come out, but I'm trying to finish it pretty soon. It's almost done on my schedule. I mean, when it gets published, I don't know, that's out of my hands, but Yeah, I think they're all kind of playing with different ideas of truth for me, and then after that, we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's been just an amazing journey. I love writing. I love being a writer. You know, I love helping other people become that. It's just fun. It's you know, like years ago, I don't know, 10 years ago, if you asked me like, you know, what I want to do, I don't know, but now I know. Like now I'm like, I want to do this, I want to do that, and so yeah, it's just been amazing. It's been an amazing journey.
Cowboy Carter, one-word reviews.
Damn.
Oh.
I haven't listened to it yet. I did just teach Morgan Parker's book, There Are More Beautiful Things Than Beyonce.
Yes, yes.
And we did a deep dive. We went back to Destiny's Child. We saw her in her,
Oh, Signal It is,
in all of her various eras. We watched a bunch of footage from Lemonade. But I'm behind the times, you know?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
listened to it.
As a Houstonian, she's like the real mayor. She's like the real mayor of Houston, so you have to know what she's doing.
Okay, those are my 2 questions.
Okay.
I am gonna open this up to the crowd because I think we have some beautiful nerds out there that want to, or if you two want to ask each other their questions, that can always happen. Nobody's on the spot. No one's on the spot.
I want to say one thing of praise. Can I do that?
Do it up.
I just keep thinking about that line. I turned to Bailey when I heard it. What was it? If you're about that, you want to play the best. And then you talk about God. That was an amazing moment. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah. For a lot of the poems, especially the historical people, I would watch them. If there were interviews with them, I would watch interviews and obsess over them. And so for her, she was kind of like this person of like, yeah, dude, I'm the best. I don't know what I'm gonna say. She didn't say that, but I love that spirit of like, I'm the best. I don't know what to tell you. I did that. You want to do it? Go try it. Like, try to be the best.
Hi, I wanted to ask Reyes about his work as an art critic and curator, and if it informs your writing.
It's for the internet. For me, as I said earlier, when I play with like fiction, nonfiction, poetry, for me, I think kind of as a writer, I want to play with the expansive language, right? And language is not just the written word; it's the spoken word. It's also visual language. It is movement, right? And so for me, if I want to play with the realms of language, I also have to see. If I'm talking about something, then it behooves me to see how the painters, are using it in their language, how the filmmakers are doing it, how the musicians are playing with that language. And so, for me, it just so happens that visual language is very appealing to me. I can't paint worth anything. I can't make a movie. I can't do anything, but I can play with words. And so that's just how I navigate visual language, is that I can at least translate it, right? I've recently just getting into beer writing. And that took years for me to even be able to do that, to translate flavor and taste profiles and stuff into a language for other people to understand. So as an art critic, I like, in curating, I just like putting things in a conversation with each other, right? Where it's like, if a painter's saying the same thing that I'm saying, but in their language, I love showing that math of like, how did we get to the same conclusion, or how did we get a completely different conclusion from the same thing? And so I love that. I don't know if you have played in those realms of the visual.
I just wish I was a painter, really.
Yeah.
Don't you? Yeah, I don't know. I would love to do something that's more of an embodied practice. Writing looks like shit. No, it does, right? It sucks. You're just typing on a laptop or writing in a notebook and thinking. It's all happening upstairs, but oh yeah, I would love to be a potter. I have a friend who's a ceramicist. His life looks amazing. Maybe it's a grass is greener kind of thing, but damn.
But yeah, because I have noticed that like for painters, as a writer, the privilege is like, oh, I just have to, like write it on a page or type it up. But it's like for a painter, you gotta have a canvas. It's gotta be gessoed the right way. You gotta use whether between acrylic or oils or I don't know. I want to do that, but I also don't want to do that work. So I envy them in that way.
Words are free.
Thank you both so much for this reading. It was super fun. I teach right up the street at St. Louis University, and some of our students this semester, some are here tonight. Oh, what's up? Read Edgar's book, and one of the students that gave a presentation on it noticed something that I never would have noticed because I didn't read it in a searchable form. I think he read the Kindle form or something.
Oh, did he control F for something?
So he controlled F.
No.
No, this is actually a craft question. He controlled F for the word like and for the word as, and said that there's maybe only 2 uses of the word like. And so I wanted to ask you about your relationship to simile, because the book is deeply metaphorical. There's amazing images and there's a lot of comparisons going on, but they're not using those words. And so I'm just curious to hear you talk about your relationship to sort of simile and image.
Amazing. I'm obsessed with metaphor, really. I mean, it's metaphor and lineation are the 2 things that I spend most time thinking about. I think what poetry does uniquely well is deal with multiple layers of meaning, And one way to do that is an explicit way, which is using like or as, right? But for me, the magic is when the poet is talking about one thing, you implicitly know that there's a secret subject, there's that secondary subject that's simmering underneath the surface. And the best poets, I think, have such a light touch. They're so good at it that sometimes you can't even quite name exactly what it is that this figure is a metaphor for, but you've got goosebumps. You know what I mean? Like a chill goes over you. So for me, I'm just trying to make something magic happen in the brain of the person that's reading my poems, and I kind of want them to not know that it's happening until it happens. And one thing that similes do is because they're explicit, they sort of signpost it. They're like, hey, look, I'm about to do a comparison. I don't want that. I want everything to be as immediate and unpoem-like as possible. I mean, I basically want to do like mind-to-mind communication, but that's not possible yet, So I'm using language, but everything that would kind of signal to the reader, like, hey, you're reading a poem right now, or hey, I'm trying to talk about 2 things at once, that stuff doesn't interest me. And I want it to be seamless and I don't know, like someone's just talking, but they're really good at talking.
Holy shit, okay. Anybody else?
I have a question. I'm not even coming up to meet you.
Okay, I have to ask, Reyes, how's that beer? Give us a rundown taste profile.
All right, so it's almost like so in terms of the nose, it's definitely like it smells thick, and so it's almost like thick, like almost like a melted butter, but it's like sweet. It's like a floral sweet butter, right? First it tastes like nothing, but then the bitterness creeps up on you, and I think, yeah, it's one of those beers that definitely as it gets warmer, it gets thicker, so the flavor, the taste lingers longer as it warms in your hand. So.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, yeah, no, I have just one last question. did you two, and this is a very on the spot question, but when listening to each other read, did you notice any kind of crossover or similarities between your work or anything that kind of like sparked you?
Yeah, I almost wanted to include, so there's even a few poems in the voice of a mother that I kind of wanted to end it on that note, but well, I don't know. I think there is, yeah, a lot of cool cross connections that I noticed of like, yeah, labor, like whether it be tasting or like intergenerational language and advice that you don't know what it means yet, and maybe we record it just in case it does mean something later. And I think that's also present in my work a lot. And so I really like that about your work and hearing you say all those things.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think we're both interested in landscape. We're interested in scene and kind of transforming that scene, right? Trying to push into the material in front of us and make it into something that the reader couldn't have expected, starting the poem. There are so many times in your poems where there's this unexpected swerve that felt so pleasurable. I was like, oh hell, yeah, he's switching it up. Oh, he's switching it up again. I'm trying to do that more in my poems. I think I've got some things to learn from you.
Okay, and one last thing. I was just last minute asked to ask you to ask each other a question.
Oh. Riddle? Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of lateral thinking puzzles.
I'd love a recommendation, something to watch, something to listen to, something to read. It can just be, I don't know, anything that you experienced recently that really struck you, that you think we need to drop everything and check out.
It's one of those things where I watch and read so many things. I actually have, I'm gonna look like a crazy person. I have a book in my journal. I keep track of everything that I read and watch. So I don't know if you don't mind me asking you a question while you're answering it, if you could get me right back. And I can answer your question well enough. But my question to you, it's that, my question to you is, oh no, thank you. So I mean, you head a department that's really fucking cool. If you had unlimited resources, what do you want that to become, or what would you want it to be for you and your students?
Yeah, I was talking to Reyes earlier and saying that I just moved into this. I'm a teacher. I teach at Goucher College, and I help direct the creative writing program there. And we have this endowment where I get to give money to students and spend money to bring speakers and so on. It's a really lucky thing at a tiny little school, My dream, I guess, would be for there to be funding for students to make more cool shit. By which I mean not just to start. To give students the materials and the training to make scenes, to make chapbooks, to make broadsides, Yeah, I want to give, because the Goucher, to be honest with you, kind of an art school, you know what I mean? The students they're like B students, you know what I mean? I went there, I'm not that good of a student, but exactly, because they're busy dreaming, exactly. Yeah, I've taught at some schools where it's everyone's the valedictorian of their high school and they have all this great training and so on, academically, and they tend to write really safe poems, and my students are off the wall. They don't care what grade I give them. They just want to make cool shit and discover a voice that's really theirs. They try to figure out what they can say that other people can't say, and so dream-wise, I guess I would want to be able to support them fully with all kinds of cool materials and workshops and so on for them to make their work sort of manifest physically in the world. Because I think they thrive doing that too. Yeah.
That's cool. They're lucky to have you. Let's see. In terms of reading, recently read, this sound bad, I mean, it's been out for like almost 100 years. Their Eyes Were Watching God. I recently read that. Let's see. Another book from my press, what is it? University of Arizona Press, Yaguarete de White, by Diego Baez. He might be the first Paraguayan American poet published in English, which is really cool, but also the poetry is amazing. In terms of watching, let's see, and here you can see kind of my psychotic tendencies where I just write down everything obsessively. You tell me. Thank you. Let's see, for example, I've recently been doing a lot of research on my book of essays. I'm writing a lot about pop culture. So I've been watching a lot of different movies in terms of different topics and focuses. Let's see, I recently, just to kind of keep it short, Bottoms. Has anyone seen Bottoms? Bottoms is probably one of the funniest movies I've seen in like years. That one's pretty amazing. It's about two high school lesbians who start a fight club. It's hilarious. It's amazing. Iota Berry is just one of the funniest people to ever live right now. We're lucky to be living in that. Let's see. I would say I was rewatching some, what's his name? What's it called? He did the Transporter films. Yeah, Jason Statham. We were watching a lot of his movies, and oddly enough, like a lot of the action tropes that he did first are like being redone in other movies. Like, so like in Transporter 2, there's a scene where he has a bomb under his car, and he drives it to, I guess like what is it like what are the machines that have like the things that hang down that they can pull stuff up? Cranes, yeah. He drives it to a crane. He flips the car, and the crane knocks the bomb off the bottom of his car, and he lands it perfectly. And they do that again in Fast and Furious 5. Vin Diesel literally does the same thing, and that is crazy to me.
This is where we were at.
Exactly. Yeah, Transporter 2. Don't bother with the third one. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll end it on that.
All right, that's a perfect place to end it on. Yes, so poets, thank you so much. Seriously, let's give one more hand to our poets. It's exciting. Thank you for being part of our first, our first movie to the whole thing. So the end of the event housekeeping, books on sale over there with Erin. Erin, put those arms up again. Thank you. Through Left Bank. So we thank Left Bank for that. You can become a member. It's $5 a month, right? To become a member?
You do it at whatever amount you want, but yes, that's
Okay.
what we started at.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So you can become a member of the St. Louis Poetry Center. It's awesome. You should. There's a really, beautiful community that's just continuing to grow. And I am so grateful to be a part of it, at the level, meaning just in the middle of the boat, it feels really good. And finding that community feels really, really good. So if you even like poetry a little, become a member. Thanks again to our funders and our partners. We will be picking back up in September. Lizzie and I will be back. We will have our routine still goofy, but maybe a little more smooth. And we have some upcoming St. Louis Poetry Center events for National Poetry Month on April 8th at Webster University, and Novel Neighbor, Poetry in the Woods, Spring Forward series with Amy Whittemore and Travis Masadi. April 23rd at Focal Point, Poetry at the Point, Perugia, is that right? Perugia Press Showcase with Melody S. G or G? G, thank you. Carolina Achendani and Catherine Anderson. A lot of names for me today. April 29th at High Low, Dara Barnadab and Asha Futterman. Is that right? Do it okay? All right. And then we also have some more upcoming community poetry events in town. April 13th at Canary Teas, there's going to be a reading of some awesome people who created a poetry workshop and kind of group called Ballard Poetry Society. April 15th at John Burroughs, Keeping Language Alive. That'll be a panel. April 16th at Fortune Teller, Reborn Poetry Series. Jane 11 will be reading. Hosted by Matthew Freeman. April 18th at Subterranean Books. There's just a lot going on. So there is a blue thing. Look at Erin. Again, everyone. Erin knows all, has all. And the poets will be signing books. And again, thank you so, so much for being here. Really, really grateful. And yeah, poets, thank you so much. Love you.